Good evening, and welcome to the third annual Veterans Values and Voices, a spoken word presentation to honor all American veterans today, Veterans Day, by giving veterans and their family members a venue through which their voices may be heard. I'm Scott Howard. 7 years ago, Annie Ginter and I co-founded Writeface. Writeface is a Lancaster area nonprofit which strives to assist veterans in their readjustment to civilian life by facilitating free creative writing workshops. First off, thank you to all who made this show possible. Marcy Delegan of South Central PaARTners, Barry Kornhauser of the Ware Center and his crew, Chris Jackson, Wesley Bullock, and Amy Banks, Millersville University. And a special thanks to John Gerrie, Brendan Stengel, Dave Lefevre, Lisa Fairman, and J.C. Fetlock of Music for Everyone, and all the poets who graciously sent in videos of themselves reading their works on very short notice. It takes a village, they say. I'm very proud and honored to be part of this town. Thank you all so very, very much. Because of COVID-19, this year's presentation is all virtual and features the works of 9 unique poetic and storytelling voices. Additionally, through the collaborative efforts of Writeface and Music for Everyone and their new initiative, Music for Every Vet, there will be 4 songs performed that were written by veterans and crafted with them, and the musicians for Music for Everyone into really impressive works. I hope you find the show entertaining, emotionally stimulating, and thought-provoking. John Gerrie, the founder of Music for Everyone, would like to say a few words as well. And then we'll get on with the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome everyone. I'm John Gerrie. I'm founder and executive director of Music for Everyone, and I can't tell you how excited we are about this program. Our mission is at Music for Everyone is to cultivate the power of music as an educational, community building, and public health tool in Lancaster County. And this effort, the Music for Every Vet effort, was born out of an initiative we launched about a year and a half or so ago called Music for Everyone's Well-Being, where we're trying to cultivate the power of music as an individual therapeutic and public health tool. And when we heard about what Scott was doing with the vets with Writeface, we were like, boy, this looks like this could be a great opportunity somehow to marry the spoken word to music, and hopefully, the sum is greater than, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So we reached out to Scott, and he was all for it. He was excited about it, and so it went from there. And I think what you're going to find out is these pieces that have been written by the vets are incredibly powerful, incredibly moving. I do want to thank the work of our musicians, particularly Dave Lefevre, Lisa Fairman, and also Brendan Stengel, who did a lot of the administration of the program. But we are so excited about this and its possibilities. You are going to be blown away by what you hear. But mostly I also want to really thank Scott Howard. Again, when we reached out to him, he was nothing but, yeah, let's do it, it's great. But what's really inspiring about Scott is his unyielding commitment to helping vets, and that truly is inspiring as well. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I think again you're going to find these pieces they're going to blow you away. So again, thanks. We're excited about it, and we appreciate your support, and enjoy the show. Thanks.
Hello, so it's my honor to participate in this performance for such a good cause. And I'm going to be reading from my great-grandfather's Civil War memoir entitled The Civil War Memoir of Sergeant Christian Lanker, 19th Ohio Volunteers. Lincoln's expressive face. I wormed my way through the crowd so I could touch the steps with Lincoln had to descend while making his way to the dining room. When the car door opened, as soon as the people could see his face, a united cheer from thousands of throats made the welcome ring with loud acclaim. The first glimpse made an indelible impression upon my memory which will never be effaced. That gaunt, tall figure and haggard face, the angular, spare body enclosed in a dark suit, not fitting or seemingly not fitting. Above all was that face, which once seen could never be forgotten. There was something deeper than the exterior, something magnetic, transfigured, attractive, a benevolent and spiritual face, which seemed to make one feel as if it were the face of a friend whom one had known for years. With him was Colonel Ellsworth of the famous Zouaves, who I believe was the first Union soldier to lay down his life on rebel soil. He was shot at Alexandria, Virginia, on the stairs of a hotel by the proprietor when Ellsworth was coming down with the rebel flag, which he had taken from the roof of the house. The assassin was immediately killed by one of Ellsworth's men. Beside Ellsworth, there were others among them, as we were informed General Hunter and Senator Ben Wade. About these latter I'm not sure, but I recognized Ellsworth. The people called for a speech, and this is what he said. My friends, I understand there is a turkey waiting for us in the dining room which needs our attention, and should I make a speech, we might get to Washington too late for the inauguration. This was the only time I ever saw Lincoln, and I never regretted the few miles walked to see him. Only a short time before, the Prince of Wales, the late King Edward of England, passed through the same area while making a very popular tour of the United States. I walked the distance to see a president-elect, but not to see a future king of the greatest empire in the world. Lincoln addressed large assemblages of people at various cities on his way to Washington. His speeches were temperate, conciliatory, hopeful, and patriotic. Little did he dream of the bloody drama which would soon be enacted, in which he would be compelled to be the most responsible, and that his life would be sacrificed at the hand of an assassin, just as the dawn of victory, peace, and a united country was showing its glimmering portends. I'll go to two other short excerpts. One is Night Visions at Stones River. That night after the battle, I found that out of 6 who were near me in the hand-to-hand clash, Blythe was dead, having been struck by bullets. Maurer had been struck upon his U.S. plate by a rifle ball and was doubled up. Paramore had a bayonet wound. Baum and Hetzel were prisoners. They were all of my close and intimate friends. I did not know what had become of some of them, as we could not find them anywhere, and I believed likely that some were shot in the river and lay under its waters. I felt so extremely sad and disconsolate that I positively wished that I were sleeping beneath the water with them. Right around me lay 1,500 dead and wounded, Federal and Confederate mixed. The battle was over so far as we were concerned in our division. Night after night for nearly a week, in my dreams and night visions, I fought that battle over again. I could see as plainly as I ever saw in daytime that terrible rout on the 31st, masses of men in blue uniforms coming out of the cedar trees, followed by lines in gray with waving banners. I could distinctly hear the roar of cannon and rolls of musketry. It was a magic picture show at night in my sleep. Who can explain such drama? Who can explain the mental philosophy and the connections between our night dreams and during sleep and the dreams of our imagination? We lost in our regiment in 2 days fighting 213 men, being 43% of the number engaged, killed, wounded, and missing. This is an excerpt regarding the Union soldiers' reaction when they heard of the death of the Confederate Major General Patrick Cleburne. This is entitled, "We Almost Learned to Love Them." There was no rejoicing among us when we heard of his death. He was our enemy, and as such we might have been glad. But so often had we met him and his men in battle that we had almost learned to love them as neighbors and friends. When, in close connection and on friendly terms on the picket line, we called across to one another, "Hello, Johnny, what command?" The rejoinder would come, "Pat Cleburne, and who are you, Yanks?" After telling them, they responded, "Have you coffee to trade or tobacco?" 3 successive lines came up to avenge his death, but only to learn that 1,000 officers and brave men were strewn about him. Lastly, I'll end with a poem that I wrote many years before I even knew about the diary of my great-grandfather, and there were some strange parallels between my experience along the Tennessee River and my grandfather's memoir entries. This is entitled, "After the Battle of Shiloh." How does his dream find me in the very hills where he marched over 100 years ago, not knowing, alone under tarp at night? I reach for a gun I never had and never will. I dream it is slid carefully under my pillow in this midnight mountain near the Tennessee River. I am certain I will soon be dead. How does some dream of his find a way to spill a swollenness in my gut, not getting it decades before his diary is found? How does his dream, after first seeing Lincoln during the campaign, after not caring, as he says, one way or the other about slavery at that time, as he writes, it was constitutionally endorsed. How does his dream urge him, though, to press through the crowds to see for sure whether there's something deeper than Lincoln's exterior, something even spiritual, to say that Lincoln in this way is not ugly? How did his nighttime philosophy lead him to wander on shoeless horse, to seek out the elderly slave Moses, and to sit with him beneath the wide oak, to breathe with him the breath of hawk, to hear the bleeding song silently seep from the broken skin of black men? What blasts of cannon fire dreams catapult across time itself, as dead comrades, white and black, lie all about him, so that he positively wishes, as he says, he himself is dead beneath the waters of the Tennessee. How will sleep ever bring reprieve when horses mourn wildly, while gunshots yet flay, while soldiers press poultices on the ever-recurring wounds of hatred, under a disappearing star-lit sky, even as remote hymns ring from fields and lookouts, from all around the tear-soaked ground of ancient hemlock. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ernest Jones, United States Marine Corps. Today I will be doing a poem called Love of a Father. The sun rises during the day, helping me find my way to where you are. I've traveled a long way, and at night I ask God to keep y'all safe and okay. Love of a father never fades. Tears roll down my face, 'cause in my heart, y'all can never be replaced. I dream of their smiling faces, wishing I could be there, kissing and embracing their tears. Love of a father always cares. Y'all are a part of me, and I'm a part of you. As long as we remember that our love for each other, we will always be together. Whatever I have to do, I will make my way back to you. Love of a father lasts forever. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Bridgman, and I'm proud to be able to read a few poems from my new book, The Not So Happy Hour Poems for Veterans Day. So this first poem is called, Wouldn't This Make a Good Goddamn Disney Movie? As told by Mr. Booker T. Middleton, who then spits his honeycut on my shoe and says, fucking strays. She's a first sergeant, U.S. Army retired, and outside, under the porch, chasing cars, bark at the moon, piss off the neighbors, shrapnel in the ass kind of bitch. Who after 4 tours in Iraq felt that she'd earned the right to lay in the middle of the road and not move for anyone. She'd had 7 litters of pups by low-down dogs who went by the names of Gunner or Chief or Major. She hated a man in uniform and had already chewed up the mailman and the animal control officer and the scout leader of Troop 176, who for some fucked up reason thought she'd look good in a Boy Scout handkerchief before they tracked her down and locked her away. In the city pound where she organized an escape with a mangy pit bull who was a champion dog fighter and walked with a limp and had balls the size of grapefruit and was a great ass sniffer and went by the name of Max. The two of them terrorized the residents of the Sinkhole Trailer Park out on Route 5 for 5 months before an animal control officer got tired of their shit and shot both their asses dead. Some suspect she had PTSD. Some say that they just brought out the worst in each other. Some suspect it was suicide by animal control officer. But most could really give a shit. They were just a couple of dogs who needed killing.
plains with that dusty spray. Gonna make the jungle go away. Oh no, no, no. Agent Orange was sprayed again. Stinging eyes and rushes and pain. That was all a lie in the eyes of the VA. Oh no, no, no. Agent Orange is a pesticide. They said it's safe for humankind, but as you know, it left us a surprise. It's ruining our lives, and it's hard to live our lives. All we have is pain to live by. We're in our 70s today. Worried about the time that remains. Our children married with kids of their own. Many problems we brought home. No, no. Agent Orange is to blame. Just wanted time to love again. Chemo and radiation took that away. Now we only live for today. Made it home to a family. There were no monuments to see. Many in this country never knew. Agent Orange is a U.S. tragedy. It's ruining our lives, and it's hard to live our lives. All we have is pain to live by.
This is a poem called Eve's Sin. In the garden, underneath the tree, the serpent smiled and gave the fruit to Eve. God said to her, "Man will rule over thee. He will control your destiny." I'm confused. What do you want from me? We play war because you're stronger than me. I can fight, but you get the glory. I need respect and equality. Tell me, who do you want me to be? You need me tough, but you want me weak. I'm so brave, but still a piece of meat. I am a woman, and someday I will be free.
She never cried when her father died, although she loved him so. She only sighed and wept dry-eyed at his graveside covered in snow. seen way too much, she's done with her gun. A billion buzzing flies can be the stench of death waiting for no one who lives life in a Humvee. Unexpected sound, she hits the ground. Why does she feel so different? Her right to tears left sacrificed. Apathy, an unfair price. She never cried when her father died, although she loved him so. Like the gritty wind-blown desert sand, grime of war across the land had turned her heart to a small black hole and permeated her stolen soul. Was often said, leave no man behind. She resides there still within her mind, prisoner of war against her will. Hometown girl, too bitter uphill. Sights, sounds, and smells recorded on tape. Mostly at night, it's too much to take. She only sighed with sad, dry eyes at his graveside covered in snow. She wants to cry, but it seems she can't. If she could cry, she would end this rant. If she could cry, neutralize the bile. Just one cry, she'd relearn to smile. She never cried when her father died.
The Road to Heaven by Gerrie Strobel. No one to heed the call, our bodies looked unharmed. Inside we were filled with alarms. Treated like our uniforms were filled with a disease, making those we fought for ill at ease. Not knowing our story or caring to learn, some spat on us, we the baby burners. The road to heaven is paved with gold for those who suffered most of all, the ones who made it home with no one there. Never got our welcome home, no clapping on our backs. Our families noticed we were different, sitting always ready toward the door, fighting battles in our sleep, reverberations of the past. When a truck backfires, it's guns and mortar fire, guarding your home against enemies unknown. Sleep is a return to the places you've been. The road to heaven is paved with gold for those who suffered most of all, the ones who made it home with no one there. Safe, they said. Nothing there, they lied. 50 years later, truth came out for those who died. Suicides, young and old, Agent Orange cancers. No monuments for those, but for all who suffered the greed of man, the road to heaven is paved with gold. The gold of those who fought the pain and lived through the years feeling alone and given no hope. The government owed them the gold for those they left behind.
Hanging in midair. My father always looked down. He never saw the face or the eyes when he spoke to someone, or when he left his many wives. It took me decades to think about the ball turret gunner of a B-17, a glass ball hanging from a big brown metal belly, hanging in midair. Not like the embarrassing hanging of a shirt untucked, or a woman's stocking falling down, pulled up in a minute when suddenly embarrassed to be seen. The gunner's ball can't be pulled up into the B-17 as it hung and hung, the gunner an inviting target. Later, his eyes always looked down below, maybe waiting for a shot, or still on the lookout. It wasn't the red of embarrassment filling the heart of a B-17 ball turret gunner, but the terror as rounds and rounds flew towards the glass ball, aiming to turn it blood red. After discharge, my father became obsessed with flying, being in the cockpit and not down below. He flew so many hours that he flew away from my mom, his first wife. She grounded at home. As for his landing and leaving those 4 wives, I wonder how it felt. Mission after mission, crammed into a glass ball, looking at the world so far away and wanting to touch the ground. And run until the trail of tracers stopped. He ran so far ahead, there was not one friend or even one ex-wife at his funeral at 80 years old, as he was put forever into another confining box. This solid box was not left hanging in the air, no glass. It couldn't be fired upon from alongside or from below. And I have to hope, maybe he was content to have flown his missions and come to Earth.
This is a poem called The Invisible Soldier. I am the invisible soldier, a small-town girl with strength and pride. While dreaming of holy wars and Camelot, I was struck on the blind side. I was needed, they said, proud to join a band of brothers. But you cloaked yourself in camouflage, so I didn't see your true colors. I am the invisible soldier. You made me blow you on my knees. Staring at your oak leaf clusters, shall I stand for you at attention or at ease? I am the invisible soldier, the bitch, the dyke, the whore. Fresh meat for you to feed on. Shh, no one is keeping score. You threw me in a foxhole, raped and beat me blind. I just can't get over it. You left me behind. You left me behind. I am the invisible soldier. I am here, but I'm not. My soul was stolen from me, even though I wasn't shot. I am the invisible soldier, now a writer, mother, and wife. Battling the nightmares, the pain, the scars, the strife. I am the invisible soldier, a fool in a rich man's game. I lost. Yes, I made it out alive, but tell me, how do you tally up the cost? I am the invisible soldier, now a vet in the waiting room. The nurse calls me Mister, and I stand. But do I look like Mister to you? I am the invisible soldier. The memories are crashing on the shore. I close my eyes and let the darkness take me, just another casualty of war.
We all know that war ravages as it's been said, it turns all men to savages. But look inside, and we may find changes of a different kind. We left our souls in Vietnam. We left our souls in Vietnam. We went to do what some of us knew in our hearts was wrong. We had to prove we were strong. We left our souls in Vietnam. We left our souls in Vietnam. Sent them where they should not be, by secret men with secret orders. We were never meant to see the results of those orders. We left our souls in Vietnam. We left our souls in Vietnam.
Clandestine war never happens, but ravage us it does. Even when they said we were never there, we left our souls in Vietnam.
We finally came home, kept our mission close, never speaking of what had happened.
We wept inside, so only we would know.
So this last poem is called When I Write. Sometimes I can hear the boy I once was answering for the things that wasn't my fault. In my writings, like the spark of a welding rod against the metal of conformity. In my words that appear like those on faded blackboards in empty summer classrooms. They are as elusive as the moonlight in the tall grass around my secret fishing hole. They are a rope swing tied to a limb above a dried creek bed. They chop at the air like that metal-bladed fan in my curtainless window. In that bedroom where I pumped up my Daisy BB gun until my arm got tired. Then shot a sparrow off the sill and watched with a curious pleasure as it spiraled to the grass below. There is something there in my writings more than childhood cruelty, a meanness that comes with the determination of a bullfly beating itself against a kitchen window, a secret shame, the kind that comes only out of abuse or from the turning of heads and the loss of innocence. Thank you.
This is an excerpt from a short story that was published in the Columbia Magazine of Poetry and Prose in 1984. The Ambush by Toni Crocamo. Hayes knew, as sets of arms below and above pushed and pulled him onto the screaming medevac helicopter. He knew that he had been sobbing for an hour. He looked forward to the ride and was grateful for the noise. Crying could not be heard over the chopper's painful, slicing whine. Shaking off the door gunner's helpful hand, he curled himself on the vibrating metal floor. His rucksack, clumsily heaved, came aboard lopsided and flopped onto the floor. His M16, so recently fired, its chamber and magazine well now empty, was slapped on top of the ruck. Hayes knew that he would keep his back to the door gunner, who kicked the pack and rifle under the collapsible canvas web seats and returned to his door and gun. The floor pitched with the choppers rising, and Hayes was free of the landing zone his company had cut yesterday. He hated cutting landing zones. He was getting short, 63 days to go, and he longed to go home. Each day's passing made survival seem a promise, while each day's arrival made that promise seem unattainable. Hayes called it the irony factor, a cliche of war. Piano players are shot in the hand, track stars get leg wounds, and the less time you had in country, the greater the danger, fear, really, of getting killed. This made short-timers cautious and anxious. Their daily conversation might well include a mention of a friend who bought it with a month, a week, or a day to go. Word was that Price got killed during a rocket attack in Da Nang while waiting to board a plane to California. Dead in Da Nang. What a bitch, thought Hayes. Hayes' strategy was to avoid the war. Being in the infantry made that difficult. Using explosives to clear an area spacious enough to permit a supply helicopter to land or swoop low enough to dump its cargo increased that difficulty. Nothing the supply choppers brought, as far as Hayes was concerned, except the ride out of the jungle, was worth the exposure of cutting an LZ. 2 platoons secured the perimeter of the LZ, while the other half of the company blew up, chopped, and removed trees and underbrush. It was a noisy process. And in case Uncle Ho had deaf recruits in the area, choppers, like the Star of the East, would eventually hover overhead, pointing the way to this place. Every 5 days, the company was resupplied and the enemy notified of these Americans' latest location. In between, the company was stealthy. Hayes hacked at the thick green tangle of nameless brush with his machete. He molded C4 plastic explosives low on the trunk of a tree too large to chop. Later, as machetes became heavy, C4 would be used to splinter even scrawnier trunks. After the second explosion, Hayes went to the perimeter to speak to Hartzman, a new arrival, who had drawn guard duty. Short-timers usually shunned new recruits, fearing their inexperience. Time stratified the social order of the platoon, friendships grouped around departure dates. Introductions went from names and hometowns to how long he got left. Being short was a mark of superiority. Hayes figured Hartzman, being new, would rather work on the LZ blowing up trees with busier and more of a distraction than squatting alone in a foxhole staring at the jungle. Hayes didn't tell Hartzman that he suspected the construction noise might well entice the VC to lob a few mortar rounds toward the LZ. They traded places. It was an even swamp. Hayes preferred the foxhole vigil. Hartzman longed for the noise and the companionship of the LZ. The LZ, although cleared without interruption, was not completed until dusk. Hayes did not consider the absence of enemy activity reassuring. He viewed it as not as proof of safety, but merely as no reply to a loud request for trouble. He was sure that every VC and North Vietnamese Army regular within miles now knew where he was. If they didn't make trouble, it was because they chose not to. When they wanted to, they would. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever they chose. The company secured the LZ for the night. They would be resupplied in the morning. Fire bases within range were given the company's coordinates and code. Captain Olin called for the rounds to be dropped within 150 meters of the perimeter. The first shell, not explosive for safety, was close. Olin called in an adjustment. The second dummy shell burned through the air over Hayes's head and stabbed the jungle maybe 100 meters out. The captain asked for more elevation and a live third round. The triple canopy jungle swallowed the light and muffled the sound and force of the explosion. Olin was satisfied that the artillery had the company plotted. Hayes had second watch on a four-man position. Between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., he'd be on watch 2 hours and off 6. He might get 5 hours of sleep. In the morning, he would blacken another day on his wallet calendar. The morning ritual, he thought, as he spread the poncho and camouflage blanket on suitably level ground. Always the morning. Monday began with the denial of Sunday. The past 303 days did not count. Time had stopped when he arrived in Vietnam and wouldn't begin again until a year had passed. The 62 days ahead, if there were 62 days ahead, contained all time. He would leave the last calendar day unblackened. Halliday came to him, offering the Seiko, 11 p.m. Hayes dropped a wristwatch into his fatigue shirt pocket. In an hour, he would hand the timepiece to Rollins. 60 minutes later, Rollins would shake Betts awake. Betts would pass it on to Halliday. Halliday to tinker it to Everest to chance to hell with it. Hayes had more than 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep in the 9 months in the field. Night guard duty was another tedious inconvenience, and Hayes often had to struggle to remain awake for the full hour of watch. Hayes had never hit trouble after dark, unless you count the night Tree Frog died. Betts was convinced Tree Frog had dropped a grenade he meant to chuck at some offending shadow. And Betts had been only a few yards away when it happened, so he should know. I'm sitting there looking out at nothing, says Betts, and he's at the next position. I can't see him. It's about 2 a.m., and he scares the hell out of me. He calls over. He goes, Halliday, that you? And no, it's me, Betts. I said, be quiet, man. You're going to get us killed. And he says, I see something to my left towards you. And his voice is all jumpy. And now he's got me going. And I don't see anything. And then he says, oh, shit. Just like that. Oh, shit. And then the explosion knocks me on my ass. And the next thing I know, the whole perimeter is opened up. I thought we're under attack. I call it Tree Frog, but he's not answering, says Betts. For the better part of an hour that night, the perimeter was out of control. Captain Olin, then new to the field, quickly called in artillery support to the perimeter. Trees that leapt forward with the burning, blinding flashes of exploding shells were slammed back into place by the fearsome gravity of darkness. The earth quaked. Sudden looming shadows were more frightening than the relentless dark of night undisturbed. Nervous, crouching men fired to drown out to control the threatening din of shell and rifle fire. They fired at the dark, murdering their fear. Tree Frog was dead. A bird removed him the next morning. 11 months later, guys were continuing to argue that VC got Tree Frog. They swear they saw VC that night and insist they were firing at VC, not shadows, not darkness. Hayes hadn't seen any VC that night, but he did spray a magazine's worth low to the ground in a fan-shaped pattern, spreading out from his foxhole. You could get killed by things you didn't see, things that weren't even there, just like Tree Frog. Hayes usually thought of Tree Frog when he began his watch. Even so, the face of the dead boy from Texas was fading. All the dead fade. To kill the hour of guard duty, Hayes thought of home. He had discovered that by concentrating, he could take a vivid walk through his house. These walks began in his room. It was always night. He was always alone. The rooms were no longer places to him. They had become details of wallpaper, paint, woodwork, and furnishings. One night he heard a tick from the oven clock. It was a fleeting flash of an experience, the impression of a sensation, gone before it could be examined or savored, yet undeniably real, only weakly impeached by the impossibility of its having occurred. Tonight, he examined the dust snagged in the rectangular grids of heating vents. He explored the rivers and tributaries of ceiling cracks, and he memorized the medicine cabinet clutter. He arranged pantry and cupboard and built stacks of dishes that bore familiar faded patterns and known nicks. He stood dumb before the 15-watt refrigerator, star of the dark kitchen night. And he paused before the bookcase and deciphered spines until the hour had passed. At midnight, he made his way to Rollins, who shook him and gave him the watch. They traded whispers. Once assured Rollins was awake, Hayes crept to his poncho and wrapped himself in a lightweight poncho liner blanket. In 3 hours, he'd be back on watch. Thank you.
They had no idea when they signed the papers, took the oath, just how long their war would last. Driven by patriotism or retribution, vendetta, family tradition, or perhaps unspoken needs to prove themselves to themselves, or their parents, or their girlfriends, or their pastors. They heeded the call within themselves, each and every one of them. Confident in their youth, trusting in honor and heroic homecomings, innocent of even a notion of just how much their wars would change them. Unaware that the person Mom kissed goodbye at the airport could never return. No one told them that for the warriors who fight them, and for those who love them, all wars last a lifetime.
Rabboni, teach us to love, show us the way to your land above. Rabboni, teach us to see your likeness in all humanity. You gave us the morning, you gave us the night. All that you ask is we do what is right. You gave us tongues so we can teach. You gave us arms so we can reach. Rabboni, Rabboni, teach us to love. Show us the way to your land above. Rabboni, Rabboni, teach us to see your likeness in all humanity. Gave us the world to care for and keep, the bird in the air, the fish in the deep. You gave us the whale and the bear in his cave, and then with your son, yourself you gave. Rabboni, teach us to love, show us the way to your land above. Rabboni, teach us to see your likeness in all